Okay, so welcome back for our online session for the second semester of school year 2021-2022 with our class, Statistics and Probability. And I'm your subject teacher, Ma'am Sheila Marie Arce. You can reach me with my cell phone number 0967-366-2025 and with my messenger, Sheila Marie Ipino Arce. Ano po? So, yung iba siguro sa inyo nag-invite sa akin na maging friend, parang hindi ko na siya na napag-browse ng direct. Okay, so since our session is about, wait lang, first one. Yeah, about statistics and probability, it's better for us to recall, okay, basics on statistics and probability. Okay, so anybody here who wants to tell something on probability? So we'll focus first on probability because the first topics that we will have for this semester is about probability. Ano ba pag sinabi nating probability? Anyone from the group? What one word comes to your mind when you hear the word probability? Yes, Lance?
Ma'am, probability po concern po about sa how an event is likely to happen po.
Yeah, how an event is likely to happen. Ano, so more than one word yung binigay ni Lance. Okay, Abraham?
Branch po, ma'am.
Okay, so it is a branch of what subject?
Mathematics po.
Yan, of course, diba? So probability and statistics, branch po yan ng mathematics, syempre. Ano? Melvin?
Chance po.
Okay, so that's a one word that can basically describe what probability is. It means chance. The chance of winning the heart of somebody, the chance of winning from a lottery, and the chance of passing, diba? Statistics and probability. Okay, so as we define probability, it is a field of mathematics. Sabi nga kanina ni Abraham, it is a branch of mathematics. So, branch or field of mathematics that deals with chance or chances, di ba? Okay, pag sinabi natin chances, sabi kanina ni Lance, it's an event to happen, di ba? So, in a probability, yung mga event, mangyayari yan if we are performing an experiment. So, experiment, probably you can, what do you call that? Connect that to your science experiments. Ano po? Pero pagdating natin sa probability, medyo different siya from your science experiments. So in probability, when we say experiment, it is actually an activity in which the results cannot be predicted with certainty. So kahit pa ikaw ay ala Madam Auring, you cannot predict that the certainty of something. Ano? And once you repeat an experiment, so kahit pa ilang beses yan, yun na po yung tinatawag natin sa math na trial. Okay. Miko, alam mo na anak ha?
Okay po.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So aside from the word probability, the experiment, and the trial, of course, when an experiment is performed, all the outcomes, ano po, or the possible results of an experiment, tinatawag natin yan na outcome. Okay? An event, while an event is any collection of outcomes and a simple event is an event with only one possible outcome. So sa mga klase ng event, kasi meron tayong tinatawag na compound events, simple events. Pag sinabi natin simple, syempre, there is only one possible outcome. So, with all the outcomes in an experiment, once you gather them all, yan po yung bumubuo natin, ang tinatawag natin na sample space. So, kung natatandaan niyo during your grade 10 math, ano po? So, yung sample S is denoted by capital letter S, wherein all the outcomes in an experiment is to be listed down, and they must be separated by a comma and enclosed in braces. So, natatandaan niyo ba yung mga anak? Ano? So, tingnan natin itong formula na ginagamit natin to find the probability of an event. So this is basically the definition of a probability of an event, where a probability of an event, which is denoted by this, P means probability, which is equal to the number of event divided by the number of sample space. So what is this that we are talking about? So let's say, for example, the experiment is throwing a dot. Throwing a dot. Anyone? Sino? Taas ng kamay natin. Yes, Melvin?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 po.
Okay. And if S, so ito po yung mga pamamaraan kung paano natin isulat yung ating mga elements ng set. Ano po? Yan. So the same din po yan sa probability. All the outcomes are treated as elements of a set, so they must be enclosed in braces and separated by a comma. Okay. So let's say, for example, from this experiment, you are interested in finding the probability that you will get an even number. So from the outcomes of your sample space, from the numbers 1 to 6, all even numbers are 2, 4, and 6. So since there are 3 even numbers, so the number of even is 3, and your denominator will be the total number of sample space, or the total number of outcomes in your sample space, which is 6. So that means the probability of getting an even number is 1/2. Okay? So kung medyo nare-recall nyo na about probability, so ito po yung pamamaraan natin kung paano tayo mag-times and is mahaba, 5 slides lang. Okay? So kung wala na po kayong tanong, the first module, okay, or the first topics for this morning. So we have illustrating a random variable, and when we say random variable, it can be discrete or continuous, and distinguishing between a discrete and a continuous random variable. So with these topics, module 1 and module 2, I think, ito po yun. These are the objectives. Random variable is, and then we will try to illustrate them, whether it is a discrete or a continuous variable, yan, and know the difference between the two. And then we also have module 3, finding possible values of a random variable, illustrating a probability distribution for a discrete random, this is typographical error. It should be random variable and its properties. Okay. So first 4 modules, and these are the objectives. So finding the possible values for a discrete random variable. Okay. So are you familiar with those 2 types of random variable, the discrete and the continuous? Anyone who has an idea between the difference of discrete and random variables? Discrete and continuous. Okay, Miko.
For what I've known po, discrete po is can be counted, while continuous po can be measured. And in addition po, discrete po is also as a finite po na values po.
Ayan. So thank you, Miko. Uriel, meron kang gustong idagdag, anak?
Yun din po, ma'am. Pero ang continuous po ay parang infinite po.
Ay,
While yung po yung...
Yan, dinagdagan mo yung sinabi ni Miko. Kasi sinabi niya kanina, di ba, yung discrete daw ay finite, and then dinagdag ni Uriel that the continuous variables are infinite. Okay? So those are the very basic definition of discrete and continuous variable. Ano po? So anything that can be obtained through counting, yun po yung tinatawag natin na discrete, while anything that can be measured or as a result of measurement ay tinatawag natin na continuous random variable. Okay. Parang hindi ko na kailangan i-discuss to, no? Alam nyo na? Okay, ano po yung 2 possibilities na yon? It's either a head or a tail, pag 3 times. So basically, if you will toss the coin once, yung first na pagtutoss natin, there are only 2 possible outcomes. It's either, sabi nga natin, a head or a tail. Ano po? During the second toss, okay, kunyari, sa first toss lumabas na ay head. Sa second toss, ano yung possible pa rin na maging outcomes natin? So still, it's either a head or a tail. And then, kapag naman during the first toss, if it is a tail, then sa second toss, again, the 2 possible outcomes, it's either a head or a tail again. Third toss natin, okay, so dalawahan po ulit yan. So kung natatandaan nyo na sa grade 10 math, yan po yung ginagamit natin. Okay. Yan, parang yung diagram, tree diagram. And with the help of this, mas madali na nating malilista or we can easily list down all the possible outcomes when we throw a coin 3 times. So ano-ano po yun? Just trace these outcomes. As you can see here, we have here 3H and then HHT, then HTH, HTT pala muna, na doble kasi ito. And then HTA, and then with all the outcomes na tail naman yung nauna, we have the THT, the THH, THT, and then TTH, and then lastly, the triple T. Okay po, so these are all the possible outcomes when we throw a coin. Okay, so list them down properly. So we have to put letter S or whatever this possible. So let's say for example, in doing this experiment, you're only interested in finding the numbers. So since we are only interested in finding the number of heads, listing down all the outcomes, ito po yung kanina natin ha. Okay, listing down all the outcomes when we throw a coin 3 times. So seeing here that there are 3 heads. Okay po? So from this outcome, 2 heads and whatsoever. Okay? So with the number of heads, makikita ninyo 4 lang yung numbers na lumalabas. We have the 0, the 0, and then of course, yung 1 naman kahit pa ulit-ulitin ninyo, 1 pa rin yan, di ba? Okay? And then 2, and then the 3. So ibig sabihin, the number of heads when you throw a coin 3 times, okay, ay 0, 1, 2, and 3 lamang. Okay? So summarizing that in a table, finding the number of heads lang po yun ha. Yan. So your X will be 0, 1, 2, and 3. Since we are just only interested in finding the number of heads. Ano po? Nasusundan po?
Ma'am.
Yan. Okay, so what if you are asked to find the probability? Di ba kanina, na-recall natin that whenever you are finding the probability of an event, all you have to do is to find the quotient of the number of event by the number of sample space. Ano po? So again, so if you are finding the probability that X will be equal to 3 based on our table, then what will it be? Anyone? Oh, making use of the formula in finding the probability of an event. So from your table, ilan lang ba dito ang may 3? Lance?
Isa lang po.
Isa lang. Out of how many outcomes?
8 po, ma'am.
8. So therefore, the probability of getting a 3, okay, heads is
1 over 8 po.
8. Yan. Okay, so nasundan po yun? Okay, next we have finding the probability that X is equal to 2. So bilangin, ilan lahat dito ang 2, then over the total number nila. Yes, Hannah?
3 po. 3, 8 po.
Okay, so it's 3 over 8. Thank you, Hannah. Yan. How about the probability of getting 1 head? Yes, VJ?
3 over 8 po.
Still 3 over 8. And lastly, finding the probability that X is 0 is of course, Aliza?
1 over 8 po.
Okay, it's 1 over 8. So basically, very, very basic talaga. Ano po? Tandaan ninyo yan. So ganyan lang
Yes,
po yung yan, napakadali ano. Okay. So but what is this for this one? Okay. So yan na po yung lumalabas, yung kaninang kinuha natin na X is actually a variable. It has no specific value, di ba? Okay? So as we define terms of statistical experiment determined by the chance into a number. Meaning ng gusto ninyo maging event. Ano po? At yung kukunin ninyo doon, yun na yung tinatawag natin na random variable. And it is a set whose elements are the numbers assigned to the outcomes of an experiment. And usually, it is denoted by capital X. Yan. So yun po yung tinatawag natin random variable. And a random variable has 2 kinds. We have the discrete random variable na sabi nyo nga kanina, it has a finite number of outcomes. or values and can be obtained through counting. Ano po? Anything that can be counted is an example of a discrete random variable, while those that can not be counted yung outcomes, or it has infinite number of outcomes and can be obtained through measurements, are examples of continuous random variable. Okay po? So napaka dali lang naman na intindihin ng definition ng discrete and continuous variable. Ano po? Okay, so let's try these examples. Tell me whether the following example is an example of a discrete or a continuous random variable. Okay? Look at the first example. Is the temperature of a solution in the laboratory discrete or continuous? Anyone? Yes, Aryan?
Continuous po.
Okay, so it's continuous random variable. Why? Because temperature, diba? Paano ba natin kinukuha ang temperature? Of course, by measuring with the aid of a thermometer. Yan. Okay, let's have the second one. How about recording the distance traveled by the bus? Willard? Yes, Willard. Umimik na ba si Willard?
Naimik po yata, hindi lang po rinig.
Oh, pwede mong i-type, Willard. I-chat mo na lang sa ating chat box. Ano sabi ni Willard? Continuous. Okay, continuous variable. Correct? Recording the distance traveled. Is it continuous or discrete? Ayun, yeah. So that's correct, Willard. It's a continuous variable. Kasi syempre, for you to determine the distance of something, kailangan i-measure natin yan. Ano po? And last example, how about the number of promoted students at the end of school year? Joyce? Joyce, Dayan, Lim. What's your answer, Ana?
Discrete po, ma'am.
Okay. So since it is very clear now to you what a continuous random variable and a discrete random variable, we will now proceed with the next module. Okay. So I have here an example of a table of examples of random variables. Okay. And look at each experiment on how we were able to get the random variable and the possible values. Okay, so just like in our first example, when you flip a pair of coin and you are just interested, or the random variable is just finding the number of heads in 4 flips of a coin. Okay, so syempre, number of heads ulit yan. So the possible values of the random variable x will be 0 from 0 to 4. So unlike kasi kanina, 3 times lang natin i-flip yung coin, di ba? Ito, 4 times natin i-flip yung coin. So ibig sabihin, yung isa maging outcome, lahat ay heads. Kaya 4 yun. Okay? Okay. Yung another experiment is flipping a pair of coin repeatedly. And the random variable is the number of tosses until the coin lands tails. Okay? Bakit kaya sa palagay ninyo wala tayo ditong 0? Lance, nagre-raise ka pa ba ng hand? You want to ask something? Or yun yung kanina pa?
Ma'am, kanina na po.
Okay. Okay, so with our experiment number 2, why do you think there is no 0 on the possible values of random variable x? Yes, Shello.
Kasi po nakalagay po sa it is stated po na until the coin lands tails. So it is needed po na may isang tail man lang.
Ayan. So, yung dun sa lahat ay heads ang lalabas, hindi siya part nitong ating random variable. Kaya wala siyang 0, unlike dun sa una. Ano po? So, kung nakita nyo naman dun sa first example natin kanina sa experiment na talagang 0 to 4 yon. Okay po. Next, how about with the set of integers? And the random variable x is are the integers from 2 to 6. So obviously, the values of your random variable are the numbers from 2 to 6. Pakadali lang, ano? While if we have the set of real numbers from 2 to 6, okay, so you can use this notation that your x must be greater than or equal to 2 but less than or equal to 6. Okay, possible din po yan ang notation natin. And then lastly, for the lifespan of your iPhone battery, it can be greater than or equal to 0, yung nawalang-wala na, or naglalast yung battery ng phone, infinite yung battery ng phone. Okay? So yan po yung pagkuha natin, or these are just some of the examples, some lang po ha, examples of random variables from an experiment and finding the values of this random variable. I think this is learning task number 2 in your module. So I'll be uploading the modules later. Ano po? Okay. So let's say, for example, another example, you are interested in testing the 3 laptops. Okay. And you want to find out the number of non-defective laptops. So let us use the notation N for non-defective and D for defective. Okay. So kung titingnan natin, parang this is almost the same as flipping a coin 3 times, parang ganon. Ano po? Diba sa coin ay head and tail lang. Dito naman sa bawat sa isang laptop, defective or non-defective. Kaya N at D. So kung halimbawa, yung 3 laptops, lahat sila non-defective. So these are all the possible outcomes in testing whether the 3 laptops are defective or non-defective. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yan. So we have here 8 outcomes. Okay? Now, finding the value of the random variable x, where x is the number of non-defective laptops. So here, kasi yun po yung ating random variable. Ano po? Yan. So same pa rin siya. Parang similar talaga siya dun sa ating coin. Ano po? Yan. Okay. But this time, we will try to list down. Yan na siya. And computing the probability of our event, ito po yung maging formula natin. Okay. So let's try to compute. Ito na po yung lumabas natin sa table. Okay. And these are the probabilities. So instead of, actually there are 2 ways of expressing the probability of a random variable x. It can be a fraction or in decimals. So sa decimals, dinivide lang naman natin yan. So that is our table. Okay. And these are the properties of discrete probability distribution. Since it's the outcomes probability of the random variable x is always from 0 to 1. It cannot be negative or it cannot have a probability of greater than 1. So if you are 100% sure that a probability will happen or will occur, then its probability is 1. But if it is impossible to happen, then its probability is 0. And remember that the sum of all the so going back with our example kanina, if we will try to add the probabilities here, diba? So 1 plus 3, 4 plus 3, 7 plus 1 is 8. So 8 over 8, that is equal to 1. Yan. So yun po yung laging magiging test ninyo to check whether all the probabilities for each random variable is correct. So the sum or the summation of the probability of x must always be equal to 1. Okay. So your first task for this week, the learning task number 3, so makiki-screenshot po yan. So you will just determine whether the distribution represents a probability distribution or not. Then you will explain. Okay? So your explanation will just be based on the 2 properties of discrete random variable properties. So ito pong kaninang yan. So yung reason ninyo, yan dyan lang po kayo magbe-base. Okay? Whether, let's say for example, the probability is greater than 1 or the probability is not equal to 1. Yan. So ganun lang po yung state ninyong reason for your first task. Okay? So for each number, ganun lang yung magiging reason ninyo ha. You have to show and at the same time, put that in words. Okay? Yan. So we have 5 numbers for your first learning task. And learning task number 4 for the first 4 modules natin. So ito po yan. So isi-send ko rin naman yan sa inyong GC once na na-send na sa akin ni Nico or ni Hubert. Yan. So yun po yung first 4 modules natin for this week. It's more than, okay, and as we continue with the next modules, Okay. The next module is computing the probability. Kung napakita na natin kanina, ano po. Yan. Illustrate the probability distribution for a discrete random variable and then computing the probabilities. Samples of probabilities. Chances of winning. Diba? And going back with the formula for us to compute for the probability of an event, we have to make use of this formula. Yeah. Okay. Let's say, for example, let's try to find the probability of all these events. When you roll a die once, what is the probability of getting an odd number? Any other hands? Pwede ko bang tawagin si Cybel, anak? Cybel. Nahiya pa yata. Si Moira. Moira Katahora, anak. Ano sa palagay mo ang probability ng makakakuha ka ng odd number? Okay, kasi kanina, kung natatandaan mo doon sa example natin, probability of getting an even number yun, ano. So ito naman ngayon ay odd number. So from the numbers 1 to 6, ilan doon ang odd out of the 6 outcomes ng rolling a die?
3 po.
Ayan, 3. Tapos ano yung magiging denominator mo? Ilan yung total number of sample space mo kapag
6 po.
yan. And what's the lowest term of 3 over 6? Cybel? Yan. So, pinakita na natin, Cybel, ano? It's 1/2. Okay po? Yan. How about getting an ace when a card is drawn from a deck? So, alam ko naman na halos familiar kayo with a deck of cards. Ano? So, ilan bang cards meron tayo? Yana?
1/13 po, ma'am.
1/13. So, bakit siya naging 1/13, Yana?
4/52 po. Dahil 52 po yung card sa isang deck.
Yan. So, there are 52 cards in an ordinary deck. So, 52 yung denominator mo and there are 4 aces. Ito yung tinatawag natin na alas, kumbaga. So, 4 yung alas. So, yun yung magiging numerator mo out of the 52 cards and finding its lowest term is 1/13. Okay? Next, how about getting a number greater than 2 in a single roll of die? Princess. Princess.
2/3 po.
Bakit naging 2/3?
2/3 po, ma'am.
Bakit nga po naging 2/3? Oh, again, the total number of outcomes when you roll a die is 6, di ba?
Number greater than 2 is 4 numbers po. Tapos, ang denominator po ay 6. Tapos
Yeah.
lowest term po ay
Okay. So, yung numbers na greater than 2 are the numbers from 3 to 6. So, 4 po yun. So, yun yung numerator out of 6 and that is 2/3. Ayan. So, marunong naman kayo. Ayan na. For 5. Getting a sum of 5 or a sum of 9 when you throw, when 2 dice are rolled. Okay. So, remember in sets also and during the discussion of logic natin, kapag sinabi natin or, yan. So, pagsasamahin yun, di ba? Yan. Kaya yung that, which is 4/36. O, bakit naging 36 na? Kasi 2 dice na yung i-roll ninyo. Di ba? Yung unay 6, yung pangalawa ay 6. So, remember that in finding the total number of sample space, N1 times N2. Di ba? Ang magkakaroon ng sum na 5, and 4 din ang magkakaroon ng sum ng 9. Yung 5 natin, yun yung 1 and 4, 4 and 1, 3 and 2, 2 and 3. Kaya 4. Pag sum of 9 naman, 3 and 6, 6 and 3, 4 and 5, 5 and 4. Kaya 4 din po yung numerator natin dito. Okay? So a total of 8/36 or its lowest term is 2/9. So that's very basic with our topic, module. Okay? Because you'll not be able to compute for the probability of a random variable x. So here's another example. Okay. So what if you're asked to find the probability that 40 or more boxes will be sold in a particular day? What will be your answer? 40 or more. So anong ibig sabihin nun? Kung 40 or more, alin ang mga kasama doon? So that's the symbol, ha? Sino po gusto magsalita? Si Lance. O Lance, explain mo nga po.
Ma'am, sasabihin ko po ba yung sagot pa?
Sige, pwede yung sagot and then sabihin mo kung paano mo siya nakuha.
Ma'am, since we are finding for the probability of to have a 40 or more boxes will be sold in a particular day. So given this table, we have 40, we can include 40, 42, 45, and 50 since they are greater than 40 and also equal to 40. So if since the probability are already given, we can add them, sum them up, and by addition, we can get 7/10 po.
7/10, anak?
Opo.
Ulit. Probabilities from 40 to 50. Lance, 7/10 talaga siya?
Ma'am, hindi po pala. Mali po.
O yan yung sinasabi ni Lance, kasi yung random variable natin ay 40 or more. So, pag sinam natin ito, yan. Bakit 7/10 din ang sagot ko? 3, 4, 5, 6. Dapat 6 lang siya, no?
Hindi mo,
Ma'am,
tama na
1/5
po
po
kasi po
yung
1/5 po yung isa.
Ah,
Kala ko
okay.
po, ma'am.
Naka-lowest term pala to. Okay. So 7/10, naka-lowest term ito, it should be 2/10, di ba? Yan. Kaya 7/10 siya or 0.7. Yan. So, yan. That the random variable x is greater than or equal to 37 but less than 50. Okay. Pag 37, alin ang included naman natin doon? So yung 37 to 45, hindi nakasama si 50, kasi ang symbol natin is less than 50. So summing up all the probabilities from 37 to 45, then its probability is 4/5. Laktawan na natin itong slide na to, madali lang naman. Kayang-kaya niyo po. So pinapakita ko na lang, ha. And we will proceed now with the computation. So sinasam. It's very important that you know the symbols, ha. Kasi sometimes it's not only in words ang given, but in the symbols. Kaya dapat alam niyo. So kung probability of 40 naman and probability of 50, very distinct tayo na ilang dalawa, kaya yun lang yung iaan niyo. Yan. So knowing how to find the probability of a discrete random variable, the next is to illustrate and of course to compute. So how do we find the mean of a discrete random variable? So mean, you know what a mean is, diba? When we say mean, it's a measure of central location, an average, okay? So the mean is considered as a measure of the central location of a random variable. It is the weighted average of the values that random variable x can take with weights provided by the probability distribution. That's why it's very important that you know the number of random variables ninyo, yung possible values of the random variable, and at the same time, how to get its probability. Kasi pag tama kayo doon, automatic, magiging tama na kayo on how to find the mean. Kasi sabi nga, it's the weighted average. Ano po? But then of course here, the mean is known as the expected value or the mean value. If we are talking of the discrete random variable x, very distinct na po siya, not just a random variable or any measurement. So ang tawag na po natin ngayon doon ay expected value or mean value. Okay? So yung symbol natin dyan, so and is defined by computing or by multiplying the possible value of x. Di ba kung makikita ninyo doon sa table natin kanina, yung first column natin, yung may 0, 1, 2, 3, mga ganyan. And then yung next column natin is finding the probability. So you need to multiply yung katapat na probability, the corresponding probability, and the sum of that, the summation of that will be the expected value or the mean value. Okay, look at the notation natin. E of x, or the expected value of the random variable x, or we have the symbol mu, Greek letter mu, of x, or of the random variable x. So either symbol can be used, and this is our notation for its definition. So yung kada value ng random variable ninyo, i-multiply ninyo to its corresponding probability, and the sum of that will be the expected value or the mean value. Okay, let's have this example. Yan. So if you can still remember kanina yung example natin of rolling a single die. So these are the random variables, the value of the random variables, the 0 to 6, 1 to 6 pala, sorry. And then the probability of each random variable x is given by 1 over 6. Okay, so if you will try to compute for the expected value, yeah, you'll just simply multiply 1 times 1 over 6, your expected value, which is equal to 3.5. Ano po? So ganun lang kadali. Ano po? Let's have this example number 2. Yeah. So this time naman, we have an illustration. Okay? So from a grocery stores, you bought 5 apples. Ano pala? From 5 different grocery stores, ito po yung in-indicate nila na nabebenta, the average number of apples sold. Okay? So 5 grocery stores po yun. So kung makikita niyo, this first apple is placed in between 2 and 4. So ibig sabihin, from the first grocery store, ito, in between 8 and 10, meaning 9 apples were sold, 11, 13, and 19 respectively. Ano po? Now, based on the figure, what do you think will be your expected value? Anyone who wants to make a wild guess? Sasabihin kasi natin, ma'am, parang it's quite hard because we cannot find the probability, di ba? Kasi all given are just the number of apples sold in each grocery store. Okay? But then, knowing that when we say the word mean pa lang, di ba? You need to get the average. Okay? Actually, from the distances of each, pwede natin siyang kunin. Yes, Melvin?
9 po ba?
9? Paano mo nakuha ang 9?
Nasa in between po kasi, so ang assume ko lang po na may 1 na yung gitna po nung dalawa yung value. So for example, yung pinakakaliwa po ay 3, and then yung sumunod ay 9, 11, 13, and then 19, and then average po nila ay 9.
9, sabi ni Melvin. So tingnan natin kung paano natin i-illustrate dito yung finding the mean, the expected mean. Ano po? So with these 2 apples, makikita ninyo, we can compute for its distance. Yung average nilang dalawa. Itong dalawa pa lang, ha? Pairing natin sila. Yan. So bakit siya naging 6? Kasi 3 and 9, the average of 3 and 9 is 6. Tapos itong dalawa naman, kunin natin sa other side, the average of 13 and 19 is 16. Ano po? And then itong nasa gitna natin, bakit siya naging 11x, is 11. Okay? Hindi na natin siya ipinair sa iba. Okay, bakit naging 11? Kita na natin that the middle is 11. Okay, tingnan ninyo. Gitna-gitna siya. What's the difference between the distance of 11 and 6 na average nitong dalawa? Di ba 5? Well, so since gitnang-gitna, so the expected value is 11. Gitna na siya eh. Ano po? So with the way we try to compute for the expected value of this example, makikita natin yung connection ng standard deviation. And then of course, kapag may standard deviation, nandyan din yung variance. Diba? Kasi yun yung tinignan natin dito eh. We tried to get the distance of these 2 apples and the distance of these 2 apples from the mean. Kasi when we say standard deviation, di ba? It's the distance of any number from the mean. So kapag equal yan, lumalabas doon yung standard deviation. That ito is 5 distances away from the mean. This one, going to its right, ganun din. Okay, so recalling what the standard deviation and the variance is, they are both measures, something to do also with our topic, kasi we will not just be confined in computing the expected value, but of course with the standard deviation and the variance. So you know these symbols naman, kapag siya may square, yan po yung variance natin, and that is computed by finding the sum random variable natin, i-square ninyo, multiplied do sa corresponding probability nga, and then you will subtract the expected, the square of the expected value. Okay. While the standard deviation, of course, whatever is the value of your variance, just get its square root and you will have its standard deviation. So know this symbol, ano po, yan yung symbol natin kapag sa example natin kanina. So our expected mean is 3.5. So if we will try to compute for the variance of the random variable x, so inisa-isa po natin in-squared yung x natin multiplied by its corresponding probability, then the standard variable is, ayan, ima-minus natin yung square root 3.5, then we will get approximately the variance of the discrete random variable x is equal to 2.9. Ang square root nito, then it is equal to 1.71. So ibig sabihin, each outcome is exactly 1.71 away from the mean na 3.5. Yun po yung ibig sabihin natin. So for your third learning task for this week, so ito po yun, quite similar with the apples that we had a while ago. So the points are indicated in the standard deviation. So kung makikita niyo yung mga distances natin ginawa kanina, yun na po yun ha. And then, yan. Last topic, how do we compute? Pinakita na rin siya kanina. Okay. Pero ipapakita natin kapag table na yung given. Ayan. So this is an example probability. Ano po? Given na yung given na yung probability. Ito na mismo. And then we are asked to find the expected value or the mean value, the variance, and the standard deviation. So medyo magiging mahaba na kasi dapat may table kayo. Mean value, multiply lang natin itong dalawa para makuha natin, then value is 3.41. Okay? Tapos mula dun sa variance natin, di ba dapat makukuha natin? Yan. Tapos, i-squared natin ito si x, tapos i-multiply dito. Kung column na to, i-multiply nyo na lang kay x para maging x squared times p of x siya. Ay, anong ginawa? So this is, okay, ito na yung ating expected value. Okay, namali sa animation na. Okay, ang ginawa niya dito is x minus inisa-isa. Okay. Balikan natin yung formula natin kanina ha, ng variance. Ayan. So ito yung variance natin. I-square natin, yan, tapos ima-minus dun sa mga. Ang ginawa naman dito, sa table natin, ang ginawa sa table. Ayan. Pwede nang sa table ninyo, gawin nyo na lang, i-square nyo to, diba? I-square nyo the summation of that. Ayan. Tapos minus sa ating, parang mahaba, no? Ano nangyari? Okay, nawala yung, it's different from here, dun sa ating formula kanina. Yung column na yan. Tapos anong nangyari? Yan. So 1.589. Okay. Paano natin nangyari nga? Explain natin, tingnan natin ha. Okay. So kinuha natin, pero yung kanina natin, ang example natin, ang kanyang ano is x squared times p of x, tama ano? And then, isa-sum yun, and then ima-minus na rin. May ima-minus sa square ng expected mean natin. Parehas ba yung makukuha kaya? Kasi ito another way of computing the variance using the table. Mga anak na may calculator sa kalapit, tingnan nyo nga anak kung parehas yung mag-unity of x, then get the sum, then minus the square of 3.41. Malayo lang ang aking calculator dito. Wala sa So let's just check, ano po, makikita sa table. And then kung ano man yung makuha natin, if this is correct, nearly get its square root, and the value of that will be your standard deviation. Meron ba mag-object, mga anak, sa sinabi ko kanina kung paano natin? So paki-check na lang po ha, kasi it's 11 a.m. Ito na po siya. So with weeks 1 and 2 of second semester, quarter 3, so meron po kayong 5 na task. First is your pre-test. So reminding everyone lang po na kapag nakapagsagot po kayo, you need to attach po the screenshot or the link nung may score para ma-view ko po ang score ninyo. Not just by handing in lang po. Kasi kahit hinand in nyo yan, hindi kayo nag-attach, hindi ko po ma-view yung score ninyo. So, ulit-ulitin ko po, bago kayo mag-mark ng done, be sure na merong naka-attach dun sa inyong ginawang pretest. Okay po? And then this one, the same pa rin po sa inyong Google Drive, make a folder of quarter 3, and then, ito naman yung maging pagkakaiba ha, quarter 3 folder, pero wag nyo nang lagyan ng folder ng kada week. Basta naka-PDF file lang yan, and then yung file name ninyo will be LT3-1, meaning LT3 of week 1, LT4 of week 1, LT3 of week 2. Yan, kasi dalawahan ha. Ganon, para dire-diretso ko na siyang ma-view at madali na yung score. So again, make one folder lang, name it as quarter 3, and then inside that folder, upload lang po kayo ng upload either in PDF or picture form, and then the file name must be the learning task and the corresponding week. Nagkakaintindihan po tayo doon? So I'll stop recording na. Mas madali kasi pagka hindi na naka-folder inside the quarter. Natatagalan pa ako mag-view. Okay po, any other question?
Wala na po.